this past Monday, a few days before we're doing this now, here in Portsmouth, we had our climate change plan rollout. We did it on the water on a beautiful day in Portsmouth. The amount of press we got, local, regional, national press, was extraordinary. And Andrew did a great job. It's a very comprehensive plan, and it's very consistent with who he is. I mean, it's extremely deep, broad, it's thoughtful, it's data-driven, it's bold, and, you know, it's kind of like you got two positions out there. One is climate change is real, we should do something about it. The second is, I don't know if the science is real, let's just wait and see. And then there's this third position of Andrew's, which is, it's worse than you think. Yeah. You got to put the foot hardcore on the gas pedal, all of the above. And existential threat is not even exactly the right term, because the way I say, you know, if I say there's a threat of a burglar, that implies that the burglar may be outside looking for a way to get in. The burglar is in our house. Like, this is not a threat. The burglar's outside your door, and the intensity level needs to be like that. That's what climate change is. Yeah.
Do you know if Inslee said anything about the Yang climate plan, or
I've not heard it. I will say on last week, I was doing, this is before the rollout of the plan. I was in a town in New Hampshire doing a forum of surrogates specifically about environmental policy. And it was at 6 o'clock on a weeknight, maybe a Tuesday or something. And Inslee dropped out around 7 o'clock that night. And I would say, even though we did not have the full plan yet, there were a number of campaign surrogates there, but it was pretty obvious to most observers that the two campaigns that seemed to have it the most together on climate in that conversation were Yang, you know, and Inslee. Right. Inslee has a great plan and needs to be part of the discussion about climate because he's working so hard on it. And I think all the campaigns, including ours, are trying to build or continue the relationship with him to review plans and to provide advice and, you know, candor. But we were getting a lot of, in fact, one of Inslee's top New Hampshire supporters, obviously he was struggling, so he didn't have, you know, a lot of big names. But one of his top supporters, who's a town chair in one of our communities here in New Hampshire, immediately switched from Inslee to Yang the morning after Inslee dropped out and was at our climate change plan. That's his #1 issue, and he thinks Yang has the best plan now that Inslee's out.
So Steve, one thing I'm super curious about, you talk about rolling out that climate change plan. I would be curious about, what was Andrew like in the development of that plan? What was his involvement? And what was he like?
Well, first, in general, he's very intellectually curious. So, and I would describe him, this is the entrepreneur in him, I would say, as an outcome-oriented person. So if the goal is to get to a carbon emission-free economy, then that's the goal. So now you start to ask really good questions that drive you towards the goal, like whether you're talking about buildings, commercial and residential buildings that make up half of carbon emissions, or you're talking about transportation or any other silo in it. The question is, what can we do that can have a net positive impact on the economy and can aggressively meet the timeline for a carbon emission-free economy at the soonest date possible? And so that's the lens he and the whole team were looking at. So we get there, I believe it's by 2049. So we get 30 years to go from where we are to carbon emission-free. And if you look at the silos in the plan, which you can find on the website, you can see the fingerprints of Andrew's requests to the development of the plan. Show me the options. How can we do it aggressively? Give me the math of it. I got to be able to defend it. And there are certain silos where we can get there much faster than others. And that meant that we had to have separate conversations about transportation versus, say, buildings. But for example, by 2025 in the plan, all new vehicles would be carbon emission-free vehicles. And then what happens with cars is, over a period of years, you end up phasing out older cars for obvious reasons.
Mhm.
And you get to a point where by sometime in the 2030s, there would be very few cars on the road that would still be traditional carbon emitting vehicles. Housing is a little different. And if you look at it, this part of what he's unafraid to invest the money if it can be demonstrated that it will deliver the results that he's seeking. I think there are some politicians that go, look, here's how much money I got.
Right.
That I'm afraid to talk about money. What can I do for this money? He took it in a different direction. He said, I want carbon emission free. Show me the earliest date that we can do it within reason, and then price it out in the most efficient way possible. As somebody who's an MPA and audits cities and was a real data-driven mayor and so forth, this is music to my ears. And I think this is a great reflection of exactly the kind of president he'll be.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a real CEO-like approach to looking at a big problem.
Yep.
And would be welcome, I think, in the field and in the White House, frankly.